Montana transgender lawmaker silenced.
How do you pronounce that name?
Zooey
I know
Zypher.
the last one is Zephyr, but is it
This
Zoe
is
or
Zoe.
Zooey?
I'm pretty sure it's Zoe, but that's what I've heard anyway.
Okay.
All right.
I'm gonna go with Zephyr because I know how that's pronounced.
ZZ. Um,
Or ZZ.
so she has, for days before voting to discipline her, legislative leaders in the GOP-controlled state house had not allowed Zooey Zypher to speak during debates because she said colleagues who voted to ban gender-affirming care for youth would have blood on their hands. I think they're taking her off of other committees and stuff like that too. The remark provoked outrage from Republicans who said that the language was belittling and an affront to civil discourse.
Well, she's essentially accusing them of killing people.
Having blood on their hands. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
I
think
think
she's wrong.
they're overreacting maybe a little bit, but
Yeah.
if they decided that that's not the kind of language they want to have in the house, then that is their choice.
Okay. Well, then I get to say that they're anti-free speech. But they're Republicans, so they're going to shut down someone's free speech and then tell their voters, hey, we're the free speech party. We're the party of free speech. Stop canceling us on Twitter.
That's not really the same thing, though, is it?
No, they're not the same thing.
No, it's not the same thing as what is complained about. Republicans have a certain respect for rules. So you break the rules, you are going to face consequences for it. And they've decided that Zoe broke the rules here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the rules within the house, just like like how you're not supposed to, storm the podium
Mm-hmm.
and use a megaphone to fucking do protest chants
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of a house meeting where you're trying to vote on legislation and get things done.
Mm-hmm.
There are rules there. It's not a silencing. It's not anti-free speech to enforce those rules. It is anti-free speech to not allow certain things to be said outside of there. Like if somebody makes a post on Twitter and that gets censored because somebody doesn't like their opinion, that's different from breaking the rules on the House floor.
Okay. I'm going to suggest that Republicans do not respect rules at all in any way, shape, or form. If it were a 51% Democrat legislature that is going to limit gun rights, they would break all the rules with no regard. They would scream, they would cry, they would disrupt, they would bring their supporters in, and they would not follow the rules.
It is all within the rules. In fact, I mean, the last thing that you linked the Ted Cruz on was, hey, how can we actually do this within the rules, right? It's all about staying within the rules.
No, it's about bending the rules. The thing Ted Cruz suggested was not of the rules. The rules are already over. He created horseshit. He created nonsense. He created fake news to challenge the rules. Hey, we heard from a few people that there was something screwy with the votes. We have no evidence of it, but we heard it, so we need to stop the process. We need to stop the rules of verifying and doing these things that are supposed to happen on Jan 6 and investigate it. No, he does not respect the rules. He does not respect the votes. He does not respect democracy. These people in Montana also do not respect democracy. They have an in-group and an out-group. Zooey Zypher is on the out-group. So you use the rules to harm her.
and I reject your characterization of what Ted Cruz did. But no, they use the rules to harm her.
Mm-hmm. That's how Republicans use the rules. If you're on the out group, which Zooey Zypher is, the rules are used to stop you and to harm you. If you're on the in group, the rules are used to protect you.
No. In this case, she violated the rules. So, and the rules have consequences. That's it.
The only known attempt to censure lawmakers in the Montana legislature was half a century ago. Democratic lawmakers sought to reprimand 3 Republicans who were accused of placing false and misleading election and advertisements, according to news articles. The censure motion failed. There are no further records of Montana legislators being expelled or censured. So it's not like they have a really long record to fall back on of what to do when people say things like this. Efforts to punish Zypher originated in the caucus, whose members said that Zypher's comments displayed hateful rhetoric and called for a commitment to civil discourse.
So I'd also would be willing to bet that accusing Republicans of having blood on their hands is not the only thing that this person has said on the House floor that would be a violation of civil discourse. I'd be willing to bet that she said a little more than that, and that this article is probably not representing everything entirely fairly.
I haven't seen any evidence of it.
That's fine. I haven't looked for it yet, but if you want to next week, or well, in 2 weeks, then I bet you'll find some.
Well, it might be over by then, or this would be a new super important star within the Democrat Party who gets what they want. I mean, it worked so well kicking out the Justins a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah, it went great.
In her Monday speech, Zypher connected the fight over her words to the struggles facing marginalized groups throughout the country, including those who have the audacity to stand up and say, this legislation gets us killed, and have been met with punishment. She's speaking in her position of speaking. She's supposed to speak. She's supposed to talk. She's supposed to try to sway people to vote a certain way. It's what politics is, and she's doing that. But she's doing it from an LGBTQ standpoint, and they don't like it.
Yeah, I don't buy it. I have to see what exactly she has said.
These amendments and to the governor's letter. In the governor's letter, he said Montanans who struggle with their gender identity deserve love, compassion, and respect. That's not what trans Montanans need from you. We need access to the medical care that saves our lives. And these are hollow words coming from someone whose amendments are going to make it harder to access that care. This bill tries to define male and female as binary. You could not legislate binary sex any more than you could legislate that the earth is flat. Intersex people exist, trans people exist, and this bill doesn't change that. Lastly, I would say that there were conversations at the end of this, at the very end of the bill, the letter that says life-altering medical procedures should wait until they are adults. What I will say is if you are, by this bill and by what these amendments do, if you are forcing a trans child to go through puberty when they are trans, that is tantamount to torture. And this body should be ashamed. And if you vote yes on this amendment and yes on this bill, ooh, I love this. Does everyone want to stand?
Representative Zypher, would you like to close?
Sorry, I'm yielding to the Majority Leader.
Majority Leader Benton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I speak on behalf of our caucus. We will not be shamed by anyone in this chamber. We are better than that.
Representative Zypher.
And the only thing I will say is if you vote yes on this bill and yes on these amendments, I hope the next time there's an invocation, when you bow your heads in prayer, you see the blood on your hands.
So do you see in this in this video, there's a couple of times it happens. Did you notice the parts where it flashes white?
Sure.
Okay, that is representative of when they make a cut to the video. They actually put that in there
Sure.
on purpose so that you can see where the cuts were. So we didn't get the full speech, and also that is pretty accusatory. Even just the stuff that was shown.
Oh, I think it's
Um,
pretty fucking tame.
it was. I thought it was relatively inflammatory.
Ah, because you disagree with her.
I don't
Because you
think I
disagree
would.
with her.
I don't think I would um, remove her from committees and shit for it. But yeah, uh, seemed pretty angry there.
Yes, she's very angry. I'm glad she held it together as well as she did. Because the state is taking away rights. The state is taking away human rights. The state is taking away human choice. The state is taking away freedom. That should make you angry. That should make lots of people angry. But because they don't like or appreciate the idea of trans people, they don't mind when the state takes their freedom away.
I don't think that's I don't think that's a fair representation at all. We've had the trans debate before about whether people should be allowed to transition as children.
Mm-hmm.
Which I really don't care to relitigate right now.
It's fine.
But
What is the state of Montana doing right now?
I have no idea.
Okay, they're not taking away freedom. They're not taking away choice.
It sounds like they are making procedures more difficult to get for children.
Yes,
Okay.
by taking away that choice. That is no longer a choice the people of Montana are allowed to make. So they no longer have the freedom to make that choice.
Isn't this isn't the government, the state legislature elected by the people?
Yes.
Okay, and so the people are saying, no, you shouldn't be.
You shouldn't be allowed to have that choice. Yes, it's entirely possible that the people of Montana have said with a loud enough voice that has elected Montana officials who've said we do not want our neighbors and friends to have this choice.
To have surgery performed on their children.
Right. So the people are voting also to take away the choice, to take away the freedom.
You know, I don't think that this is a problem.
I know, because you are on their side, is what I'm saying. I'm walking us towards that. It is Republican conservative people who voted to take that choice away.
Yes, we're voting to take away your choice to have surgeries performed on your child who will eventually become an adult and can make that choice themselves.
If they're lucky, they can make that choice themselves. Because there are some states that are
No.
making it fucking hard even for adults. We talked about Missouri 2 weeks ago, who's making it hard for even adults. Right? We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. Missouri's making it even more difficult for adults to get that care too.
We did, but you just moved the goalposts.
No, I didn't move the goalpost. I'm telling you that this
You
is
said
the
that the
plan.
choice is being taken away, and I said yes.
Yes.
Choice is being taken away from the parents,
Mm-hmm.
so that when a child who is going to have a life-altering surgery,
Mm-hmm. Or maybe even just
can
puberty
eventually
blockers. They're not
make
just blocking
that
the
decision
surgery,
themselves.
boss. They're not just blocking the surgery. They're also blocking the puberty blockers and the hormones. They're blocking those too, which are
What's the law
reversible.
say?
I can probably find it, but they're blocking those things.
All right, I'll tell you what.
Uh-huh.
Pull up the law, and we'll talk about the law.
Okay. If if the law is
Next
blocking,
time.
okay. If the law, let's hypothetical then. If the law is blocking hormones and puberty blockers also, as well as the surgery, I mean, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't make any difference. If the law blocks only the surgery, I'd still be against it. If it blocks all three, I'm still against it. Is there a combination of that law that you would be okay with, or that you would not be okay with, or that you would be okay with?
I don't know. I have to see the law.
All right. Hypothetically speaking, it blocks those three things. The people have voted for it. Should the people of Montana be allowed to do that? Should they be allowed? I mean, should they be able to vote to limit the freedom of a minority?
So you're saying that hypothetically, if everything was banned, like no drugs or anything.
Right. If hypothetically they've passed a law that says you are not allowed to transition your
Be more
puberty
specific.
blockers, or okay,
You're not allowed to transition your child,
right.
right? Because this is different, right? We're talking about someone who is not making this choice for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, they're not making the choice for themselves.
Legally speaking, they're actually not capable of doing so, right? They're not able to consent to these procedures, so their parents have to do it for them.
I mean,
So,
the
to be
children have a
specific,
say in what they're doing with their.
To be specific,
Uh-huh.
we're talking about hypothetically. It's not that you're not allowed to transition. It's you're not allowed to transition your child, right?
Right. Right. Okay. The bill, which prohibits transitional hormone treatments and surgeries for transgender people under 18, led to a standoff this month between House leadership Representative Zooey Zypher and so it is a bill that prohibits transitional hormone treatments and surgeries for transgender people under 18.
I would say that the hormone treatments probably can be or should be allowed to be done, but the surgeries should not. And the reason for that is because you go through puberty and whatnot. Your body has irreversible changes at that point, and the hormone treatments would prevent those.
Prevent that, right?
Right.
Which is why it's this. Which is why they're pushing for it. Which is why they're suggesting that it start earlier than 18, because by 18 it's much harder to transition for either direction. Should the government be allowed to prohibit that, even if voted for? I don't think the government should be allowed to prohibit that.
Again, that's a separate question.
That's the question I'm aiming towards, not what's in the bill. That's the direction I'm trying to take this, rather than what's in the bill.
Is would I mean, like, would I vote for the bill as it's being described? Probably not. Should the government be able to do that? Yes.
Sell me on that. Why should the government be allowed? I'm saying no. So why should the government be allowed to do that?
Because the government has the authority to do that. That's it. Just like the government has the authority to impose penalties on me for having a good credit score. It's
not reopening
it's
that.
What the
government never penalizes you for that. In fact,
it's what the authority of I'm not. You're challenging the authority of the government to do this, whereas I'm what I challenge when I have an issue with a bill is the actual content of the bill or rule, right? I don't challenge the authority of the government to do one of these things unless it's absolutely outside of the Constitution, which I don't think this is.
This seems like a civil rights issue to me. This seems like human freedom and choice that the government is limiting. I recognize that the government can limit your freedom to murder people. I'm okay with that because the outcome of you murdering people is bad. I would really like you not to murder people. So I'm okay with the government limiting your freedom in doing so. I'm okay with the government limiting the speed with which you can drive on a road. Makes sense to me. Some speed kills, right? So if the government puts up a sign that says you can only go 30 miles an hour on this road, I can respect that. There's a reason behind it. They don't want you running into people. They don't want you running over kids. They don't want you hitting people because and having huge accidents because you were going 70. You know, this makes sense. This bill in Montana, which prohibits transitional hormone treatments and surgeries for transgender people under 18, does not make sense. It is the state using the authority that they have to dictate human choices, human lives, and their medical care. Do you not see it as that?
No,
Okay.
no, I don't. Here's what I will say is that these laws are being made to protect people.
Oh, okay.
Overwhelmingly, they are. Yeah. I know you don't see it that way. You see it as
No.
a limitation of freedom.
They're being made to harm a minority that the Republicans don't like.
No, I don't think so at all. I don't think that is how Republicans view this issue. Not in the legislation or in general. I'll ask you this: if we give people puberty blockers as children and hormones and whatnot, and this is me playing the advocate for a second for this kind of a bill.
Okay.
If you give them puberty blockers, if you give a male child puberty blockers to transition to being a girl, the dick doesn't get bigger. Okay? Now, if the dick doesn't get bigger, you don't have the required material to perform the surgery when they become adults. Like, that's how it's done, is
okay.
when the dick comes off and they try to create the new...
This sounds like a discussion that person should have with their doctor. Not...
As a child?
Yes. Not Greg Gianfort, the governor of Montana. The governor of Montana should not be at all involved in this situation that you are describing. He has not the medical degree. He has not the specialty. He has not the relationship that a doctor has with their patient. He should not be deciding this. This should be decided with that child and their doctor and their parents.
Well, I'm getting to the
Okay.
point.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. You haven't heard the point yet.
Okay, I apologize.
The point is that when you don't have that material, it has to come from somewhere else. And the most recent iteration of this, of the solution to this, is to take the material from the colon.
Okay.
Now, when that happens, there have been people now that have died from this surgery because colon has bacteria in it, like E. coli, and they have issues where complications from the surgery result in E. coli spreading, deadly forms of it that kill the patient.
Okay.
So, can these choices lead to the death of the patient? And if so, should the state be able to not allow that to be done?
Greg Gianfort does not know any of that. He's not thinking about that. He's not discussed it. He has to put forward a plan based on that. It has nothing to do with the bill that they're putting forward. That is, you've described a medical risk. If doctors think that the risk is too high, they won't do it. If the doctor talks to the patient and says, hey, if we do X, it will result in Y, and then we will have to do Z, and then that will, here's your end point. You know, doctors make plans. And if this plan that you just described, where they go into the colon and they steal material, harms them, then the doctors won't do it. Or they will get the consent of that person and their parents to make this a plan. It has nothing to do with the governor of Montana. The governor of Montana should never be making bills based on whether or not there's bacteria in a colon. It's a medical issue. The governor of Montana can create regulations on medical procedures and things like that. If there was lots of evidence of a certain procedure being extra dangerous, then he could create a regulatory body. He could bring them in for testimony and look into finding an expert who will find out why the procedure is extra dangerous and how to prevent it from happening. But saying certain people aren't allowed to make certain decisions isn't the way to go about it.
Okay, so you don't have an issue with the government's authority to do something, to do this, which is one of the first questions you asked me. What you have is an issue with the reason that they're doing it.
Right. The reasons that...
So then why ask me the should question at all?
Should they be allowed?
Exactly. That's two different things.
It's all interconnected. It's not two different things. It's all interconnected.
It is two different things.
How
it's
is it
two
two
different
different
questions?
things?
Does the government have the authority to make this rule? And the separate question is,
I mean, they do. I'm not saying that they don't have the authority to make this rule.
And should they be allowed that's what you're asking when you say should they
Right.
be allowed?
Should the government be allowed to limit people's freedoms on this
Yes.
on this situation? They have the authority. The authority is
They
not
have the authority,
the
therefore,
righteousness.
they are
There's a
God. Now
difference
you're
between
saying
authority
you're
and
questioning,
righteousness.
should they have the authority?
Should they have the authority to do this?
Yes.
Sell me on that. I see it as a harm to people's freedom. But you're suggesting that they are protecting people.
We're going in circles here.
Well, because I'm trying to comprehend what you're talking about, and I don't get it. I think we've come down to our bottom level. I suggest that they're taking away freedom, and you're suggesting they're protecting people. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, hi. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. If you liked what you saw, hit the like button, press the subscribe button. If you want to tell me how right I am, feel free to leave a comment. If you want to tell me how wrong I am, leave a comment too. That's good. This is just kind of a hobby for me, so I appreciate you coming by, giving it a watch, and pressing the YouTube buttons. Thanks.